Hey everyone, welcome to today's installment of IF and Love Cinema. And today we're talking about the 2014 biblical epic directed by Aaron Aronofsky, Noah. And this is a movie that I saw. I didn't see it in theaters, but I did see it the year that it came out on home video. And I think like a lot of people, um, I watched it being like, "What the fuck is this?" Right? Like, what is this? What is this movie? It's not the Noah story that I know of, and I just thought it was weird. I thought it kind of overall was just like a weird movie, and it ended in a weird place. And I didn't really think about it for a long time. I considered Darren Aronofsky's miss or whatever you want to say it. But over the years. It's a movie that I never stopped thinking about. And so I decided to watch it again after almost 10 years. I think I've seen it one other time within those past 9 years or whatever. And so, yeah, I watched it this time. And this time I went ahead and just kind of like watched the special features before the movie where I was able to see what Aronofsky and Ari Handel, long time, I think the only co-writer duo, team that either one of them ever worked with. And sort of just having like a little bit of context for the Book of Enoch and all that stuff. Really, it just makes this movie make a lot of sense. And frankly, I don't really think you need to do that because I think the problem that a lot of people have, myself included, when they watch this movie, is that they're expecting the Noah story. The story we heard when we were kids, the fairy tale. And this movie doesn't tell the fairy tale version of that. It tells the story of Noah, a man who stands by and watches the entire world die because God told him to do that, or at least he believes so, right? And this movie does not get away from that, and I think that's what really bothers people is that this kind of the same thing with the Last Jedi, right? In a lot of weird ways, like this movie was definitely culture war before the culture war because this movie takes something that a lot of people view as comfort and nostalgia and just like pokes holes at it in a ways that I think a lot of people just didn't appreciate. But I think, at least for people like me, atheists and people who aren't super religious with time, I think this movie is due for a critical reevaluation because it kicks a lot of ass. This movie fucking rules. Like the first hour of it, right? The first hour, like, no, sorry, the first like hour and a half, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, about the first hour of it is the story that we know, told through the lens of Darren Aronofsky. So it was like the most intense version of the Noah and Noah's Ark tale, and that is in and of itself like just its own crazy thing to watch. And if one thing that I think helps, and frankly, Hollywood needs to figure this shit out because it's a problem here with the fallen angels, the Nephilim or whatever, and it's a problem with the Ents in the Lord of the Rings, where it's like they create these monsters with these voices so deep that everything they say sounds like gravelly voice and nonsense, and you don't know what the hell anybody is saying. So I watched this movie with subtitles for the first time in my life, and now that I know what the fucking angels are talking about, like, oh, it makes sense. It all makes sense. It all connects. Um, and yeah, like the first movie on top, the first half of this movie it's just like this epic action movie, literal action movie. Like Noah's doing Batman moves and he's talking about justice. You know what I mean? Like he's Batman. He's totally Batman. And it's great and it's super fun. And Darren Aronofsky has a great imagination for action and frames everything in this incredibly original way. And it's also just brutal. I think that's the craziest part. I don't think anybody expected this movie to be brutal and bloody and unrelenting and stuff like that. But that's what makes this movie so fantastic. Is that it's really unflinchingly looking at this story and it's making us ask ourselves like, hey, not only like what kind of man would do this, but what kind of God would ask a man to do this? And it's that sort of perspective that you don't get from devout religious people. You get this from people who are more questioning and bolder and artistic, and I really appreciate that. I love that this movie is even for like an atheist, like challenging enough that even I am like, that's not the story I know. Not that I care, right? Like I'm an atheist, it's whatever to me, but it definitely does that. And I think again, like he's taking that feeling and he's sort of running with it, and he's really just challenging us to be like, this guy watched babies drown and just did nothing about it. And the thing is, the movie takes that to its most logical conclusion. I love that. I love that. I frankly think that's exciting. I think it's unpredictable. And it's what I go to the movies for a lot. You know, it's to be led down somewhere that I never thought or ever wanted to go. And this movie is a bit of a mess because I'll be real with you guys. I'll be real. The first half is great action movie. The middle third, it's a little wonky, but it's really like digging into this character. Like Noah literally watched the world die, and we have to live with this guy. Everybody has to live with this guy, and that's what we do. That's what we do throughout this movie, and where the story goes in its second half, I think yeah, it's definitely gonna throw a lot of people off. But if you stick with it, I think the movie arrives at a very meaningful and beautiful place, and it is, whether Christians want to admit it or not, very accurate to the Bible, you know, or at least to the original story, the original telling of these Bible stories. And frankly, like it wouldn't really matter because this movie is just a melding of secularism and environmentalism and Christianity and religiosity, and it's doing all that to sort of present this sort of really powerful message that I think Aronofsky further elaborates on with Mother, where it's like, hey, this is our fucking planet, we all live here, we should all be taking care of it, and he's an interesting guy, an intense filmmaker, and he brings that intense and interesting perspective to an ancient story in a way that feels fresh, in a way that is challenging, and in a way that's meaningful. And that's the most important thing about this movie is that this is a meaningful movie. You know, and I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I think this movie fucking rules. And I hope people. Oh, this is one of those movies that gets a critical reevaluation because I think it definitely deserves it. Because if you look back at when this movie came out, the religious and critical backlash to this movie, I thought was just like, especially in retrospect, way overblown. I mean, this is the same year that like, you know, Christians for decades complain about like how movies are, for them, religious movies weren't in theaters, right? And this movie came out the same year as like the God's Not Dead series. And Christians for some reason embraced that bullshit because it pandered to them instead of Noah, which is this honest to God incredible piece of art. Like that's a bummer for them. And I think frankly it's kind of like an interesting phenomenon to happen. Like I think like there's, I mean, like I'll look into it and there's just like not a lot of like documentation about that sort of backlash that a movie like Noah got. And that's a bummer because I think it's worth being out there. It's like somebody should make a video essay out of that. It's like somebody should make a wait I make video essays. I do. This is it, guys. This is the next one. Our next video essay is going to be about Noah. So if you enjoyed this video review, you really want to see me go in depth on this one, especially exploring the Christian and religious backlash to this and how that informed a lot of the tribalistic backlash culture that we see on the people that I cover on These People Hate Cinema. Yeah, make sure you hit like and subscribe because that's going to be the next big project, and that's probably going to be coming out in a few weeks. So until then, see you next time. Bye.